individuals that might be interested in historic preservation might participate in the process, and give you a little time frame so that you knew where we are and how we're going to move forward. So just to give you a little bit of a project overview, the zoning code rewrite was planned so that we had the tools that we needed to implement Blueprint Boise, our Boise City Comprehensive Plan. We wanted to make sure that we had all of the tools that we needed to build upon our mission and our goals and our strategic priorities as well, especially as we have a new administration that has come aboard. Another important component of the zoning code is to make sure that everyone in the community is engaged and can participate in the process. So we'll be working on that and making sure that they have a user-friendly document that has illustrations and is organized well so that they know how to find the information that they're seeking and where they can locate that. We want to make sure that we're incentivizing great design, and then of course making sure that we have a predictable development process for developers, residents, as well as our elected and appointed officials as well. We started the project in November of 2019, and we identified 5 major phases. Phase 1 was the easy part. It identifies the scope. Phase 2 really got us into that research that we needed. So we started to compile information. We had members that were elected and appointed officials that were invited to come visit with us and talk to us about what was working and what wasn't. And we also surveyed our larger community as well as our development community and said, what do you think we're doing well and how could we do better? We gathered that information, and together our consulting partner, which is actually Clarion Associates from Denver, Colorado, they're helping us with the project. They took that information and they also compared it to best practices nationwide. And they compiled a document which we call the Diagnostics and Solutions Report. That document was actually released in early 2021, and that identified how we're doing comparatively to other cities of our size throughout the nation, what we're doing well, and how we can do better as a city. From phase 2, then we got to move on and we've started phase 3, which is the good stuff. That's where we're actually drafting what is happening. And we've identified 3 different ways of which we're going to do this. And so module 1, we've identified as our uses. So that's going to give us all of our zoning districts and our table of allowed uses. So that's going to tell us what can I do with my property. Module 2 is going to get into some of those development and design standards. So how good does it have to be? So how is the building sited? What are those dimensional standards that apply? So that could be setbacks, height, density, parking, those type of things. Then we're going to move on to module 3, which will be our final process, which is process and procedure. And that's really going to talk about the administrative process. That's going to talk about who reviews applications, how they review those applications, how individuals can participate in the process, and what the appeal process looks like. So we will compile those 3. We'll button those all up together when we get to phase 4 and consolidate them. And then we'll also open that up for public engagement to tell us how we did. So did we do well identifying module 1, module 2, and module 3? And then by the time we get to phase 5, we should have a good idea of where we're headed, and we should be able to go through the approval process, which would open it up to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission for formal recommendation to the City Council. City Council will then make the final decision. So we are currently in phase 3. So just to give you an idea on a timeline of what that looks like, we're kind of right here where that blue mark is. So in May, we released our draft module 1. And then May and June, we spent a lot of time going out to the public and said, how are we doing? Are we on the right track? And so as part of our public engagement, we actually did a public survey that was available online. We also had some community conversations that we visited different areas throughout the city and shared our draft with those individuals. And then we also allowed individuals to schedule one-on-one time with us and say, come in and talk to us about what their concerns were. We've just finished up with that. We're busy compiling that information, and we should have that for you very soon. So stay tuned. We'll have information for you very soon. Phase 3 is actually going to take us all the way through this year. So 2021 is going to be a busy year of drafting Module 1, Module 2, and Module 3, and sharing it with our public. Then 2022, we'll get down to the good stuff, and we'll compile that document. We'll make sure we do public engagement, and then we'll go through the review and adoption process, which will end us at the end of 2022, hopefully with a final zoning code. So when we talk about some of those major milestones, as I noted earlier, we have Clarion Associates as our consulting partner, and we brought them aboard in September of 2019. Phase 2 was our first deliverable, which was our diagnostics report, which was early 2021. We're going to be drafting modules 1, which we just completed. We're working on module 2 and module 3 throughout the remainder of 2021. We'll have that draft code in February of 2022. Then we're going to kick off those final revisions so we can start that adoption process. So we talked a little bit about those phase 1 and 2 efforts. So that early outreach, we also had some kickoffs and an online survey. If you're interested in seeing what that final diagnostics report is, that's available on our website today, as with all of our deliverables. Also, if you're interested in anything that we had for our online surveys, we also have those results out there as well. So you can read what our community is saying, what they are hoping to gain from the zoning code rewrite, and what they have concerns with. So the diagnostics report looks like this. Like I said, it really talks about what we heard from our citizens, what our consulting partner saw based on national experience. And then we also had some detailed recommendations and specific changes that as staff, as well as our elected and appointed officials had brought forward as well, in hopes that we could make all of our jobs a little bit easier. So module 1, we had talked about zoning districts and permitted uses. We've just completed. Module 2 is that development and design and quality standards. That's going to be really the meat of what we're doing. And then module 3 is going to really get into that process and administration. So when we took out module 1, the draft to the community, we identified 4 large changes that happened. So we condensed and renamed some zoning districts. So we took a lot of 23 zoning districts and condensed them down. We have allowed some new housing types to occur in all residential zones. So for example, under our current code, we would be allowed to do a single family residential dwelling, an accessory dwelling, or a duplex in any of our residential zones. We are actually proposing to expand that to allow townhouses, so attached units, as well as triplexes and fourplexes without the conditional use approval. There would be design specific standards that go with that. So it wouldn't be an outright allowed use. It would be allowed if they meet those design criteria. We've also looked at allowing some small scale commercial uses in some of our residential zones. So that is specific to the R3. So some of those really small scale, so limited food like a cafe, coffee shop, deli, maybe a mercantile, some of those things that have made a lot of our historic districts, those places that people love. So we've heard that pretty regularly that people wanted that. So that was a recommendation that we have in our draft code. And then we would also allow that in some R2 zones the R2 zone, assuming that they met the conditional use permit requirements. Again, we would also have standards and design specific standards that would apply. So it wouldn't be an outright allowed use, but it would be allowed if they met those criteria. And then lastly, we created some zones that allowed for mixed use development. So if you take a look at our comprehensive plan, it identifies mixed use activity centers throughout the city, but we really didn't have a zone that allowed us to do residential and commercial together. And so we have now created zones that not only do they allow it, but they encourage it. So those are the big four things that have come from Module 1. When we talk about what happens next, we're going to be busy drafting Module 2, May through August. And then we'll go ahead and have a release date of August 23rd is our target date, with public engagement that'll follow. And we'll go August through September to make sure that our community is aware of what's happening and what our proposals are in regard to Module 2. And then we just want to make sure that everybody has all the tools they need to get a hold of us or to follow along. So we actually have the project website, which is cityofboise.org/zoning-code-rewrite, or just in the search bar, just write zoning code rewrite, and it'll take you right to our page. There's an option for you to follow along, so you can join our email list and newsletter. That's going to let you know of all of our deliverables. It'll also let you know of any public engagement opportunities so that you are aware of how things are progressing, what's coming out of those engagement activities. And then we also have citywide advisory committee meetings. Those are held on the third Thursday of each month. They're from 3 to 5. And we have a 20-member committee. Those committee members are geographically dispersed throughout our city, and they are supposed to be representative of our entire Boise population. So those are interesting. Our consulting partner generally presents some information, and then they open it up to the committee to discuss anything that they might want to talk about in regard to those items. So as I've noted before, we're currently drafting Module 2. So we're really talking about a lot of those design standards. So in the past, we've talked about subdivision standards, connectivity, those types of things. And we'll actually move into some of those parking standards here come next week, as well as landscaping. So those will be interesting to follow. So that's really the information that I have for you today. We just wanted to make sure that you were aware of what's going on, where we're at in the process, and how you can participate. You can always get a hold of myself. We also have a project team. We have Wendy Ellistad or Deanna Dupuy as well. We are welcome, or you're welcome to contact any one of us by telephone or email, and we can spend some time with you or answer any questions that you have. So with that, I'm going to open it up and see if you have any questions, and then I'll let you get to your business.
Are there any questions? Oh, sure.
So with the new design guidelines and things like that, are the preservation guidelines going to be updated too?
We are hoping that not only will the guidelines be updated, we're hoping that they'll become codified. So that'll be a discussion. I know that internally we've talked about and gone back and forth, is historic preservation so specialized? Do we need to designate a certain period of time just to focus specifically on that? Do we do that as part of the rewrite? Do we do it ahead of the rewrite? And so those discussions are still happening, but we want to make sure that those guidelines are codified and we actually have code rather than recommendations for historic preservation.
And I have a follow-up question. The contractor that the city's hired, do they have professional staff that meets the Secretary of Interior standards for preservation planning, and architectural historians actually know the Secretary of the Interior standards? And then if that's not going to happen now, is that something the city is going to make sure that they hire professionals that meet those standards?
So that's an excellent question. So commissioners, I'm not sure if our consulting partner has somebody that's specific on staff. They have professional planners, legal staff. They're a really well-designed group. But above and beyond our consulting staff, we also have us as internal staff as well. So we have what's called a technical committee. And so we have an individual from our legal staff, an individual from housing. We have historic preservation. And so we have both Ted Venegas as well as Josh Wilson that is on our staff. Plus we have our planning and zoning director, as well as a number of other people. So we aren't limited to a singular person. So we've got a collective knowledge that we're working with. So, but I can certainly follow up and get back to you and let you know if our consulting partners have an individual on staff. But I'm guessing we probably do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much, Andrea. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank
As
you.
well.
That was great information.
Andrea.
Okay, do we have any other business within our work session? I don't think so. Right?
Yeah, we don't have anything else on our schedule for the work session.
Sounds great.
If you guys have questions or anything, comments, we can discuss something, but other than that, you're free for 20 minutes.
Sounds great. We'll go ahead and call the work session and we'll reconvene at 6.
Hit the video button.
Is that-
We good? Okay.
I think we can go.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. Today is the 28th of June, 2021. This is the scheduled time and place for the Historic Preservation Commission meeting. I'm Chairperson Montoto, and I now call the meeting to order. Victoria, would you please call the roll?
Koski,
Aye. We're here.
Maroney.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Pape.
Here.
Montoto.
Here.
Kintai.
Here.
7 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Have all commission members had a chance to review the minutes from the May 24th, 2021 meeting? Does anyone have any comments or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, I will now take a motion on the May 24th, 2021 minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Maroney. Victoria, would you please call the roll?
Koski,
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Weaver.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Pape.
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Kintai.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
We have one possible item for our consent agenda this evening, and that is item number 3, DRH 21-00215, Amy Allgaier at 1808 North 11th Street. Does the commission have any questions on this matter? Is the applicant present?
Yes, we're present.
Are you in agreement with the recommended conditions of approval?
We are.
Thank you. Ted, was there any written opposition to this matter?
Madam Chair, there was not.
Is there anyone present tonight wishing to testify against this matter? Seeing none, and based on the representation of the applicant and lack of opposition, item DRH 21-00215 will be placed on the consent agenda. I move that the consent agenda and all items on the consent agenda be approved subject to all the findings and conclusions and conditions of approval agreed upon for each application. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Maroney. Victoria, would you please call the roll?
Koski,
Aye.
Maroney.
Aye.
Weaver.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Pape.
Aye.
Montoto.
Aye.
Kintai.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And we'll now move on to the remaining items on the agenda. The first item to be heard tonight is DRH 21-00186, Jim Calley at 2001 North 19th Street. Ted, can we please have the report?
Madam Chair, Michaela.
Oh, Michaela, I'm
will
sorry.
Present that, and I'm
I
trying.
knew that. I'm sorry, Michaela.
No, you're fine. Totally fine. Okay, let me pull that up. There we go. Okay. Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you for your time today. I'm going to be presenting on DRH 21-00186, appeal of an administrative approval to remove and replace 3 windows. The property is located in an R1CH zone in the historic district, the expanded north end. Its classification is contributing. So this is the property that we are looking at today. It's 2001.
Michaela,
Yeah,
we can't see a screen, your presentation. Are you sharing something right now?
okay, let me try again. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yep, there we go.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Michaela.
No problem. Thank you. Sorry for that. Okay. So just to reiterate, DRH 21186 classified as contributing in the north end. So this is the subject property. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So this is the subject property, 2001 North 19th Street. It is on the corner of North 19th and Dewey Street. Right here, I put 2 red lines to signify where we are going to be looking at today in the area of interest. So this is a Google Maps street view of the house. You can see this is the corner of Dewey and 19th Street. So you can see the windows in question here on this corner. The applicant provided these pictures of the windows in question with their application. So there are 3 windows that were proposed to be replaced. This is the one on the front facade. This is the one on the street side, both pretty large windows. And then there's a 3rd window that is set back just a little bit in the same style. As you can see, it's these multiple grids here and small panes of windows. The applicant was proposing to replace these windows with a very different style of fiberglass window. What they were planning was to simplify it a bit and just put a single divided light here, just a few small grids, much simpler than what is existing now. For these 2 windows, as you can see, they're very similar in how they appear. In this middle one here, they were doing a picture window and 2 double hung windows on each side. Staff approved this with a condition of approval that the replacement windows must match the size and the style of the existing windows, including the current grid and divided light pattern, which would mean these windows would not be appropriate. The applicant has grounds for appeal, which I listed here. The first is that the windows to be replaced are not original to the home. Staff's response to that is that the style and material suggests that these windows were installed when the front porch was enclosed, which likely happened during the North End's period of significance, which runs from the late 1800s through about 1940. The reasoning for that it was built or installed during the period of significance, is that the window material appears to be steel. If it was built after or installed after World War II, it would have been aluminum, and the style is also a fairly historic style that you don't see after World War II when they started switching to the aluminum sliders. So as you can see, it's got these true divided lights here, really small panes in this window, and the material that was used is one that was used historically. So they are not original to the home, but they were built or installed during the period of significance, more than likely. The second grounds for appeal was that the grid pattern is not consistent with the style of the home, by which I believe the applicant meant it doesn't match the other windows in the home. So as you can see here, we have these mini gridded windows here, and then the more simple windows here. On the front facade, you see the contrast between the two with the mini grids here, lots of tiny panes of glass. Over here, you see a much simpler, larger panes of glass in these windows in a different style. Staff's response to that then is that while they may not match the other windows in the house, they do fit in with the craftsman and bungalow style. The historic survey says that it is a craftsman and bungalow architecture type. When the design guidelines describe windows in this type of house, they say that the windows are generally sash, which is this here, or casement, which refers more to how the windows open than the style of the windows themselves. In addition, sash windows, because it's a more traditional or historic way of opening a window, they tend to be traditionally paned, which means they do have these smaller panes of glass and these separators, creating a grid pattern that creates a lot more smaller panes or grids than the more modern windows that have the larger panes of glass. The third grounds for appeal was that the applicant would like to replace the gridded windows with non-gridded to make all of the windows match the original windows. So staff's response to that is that the design guidelines do have a couple of things to say about divided lights. The first is that the use of true divided light windows similar to the original is preferred. The second is that the use of true divided light windows is preferred. So what staff interpreted that to mean is that the true divided light windows should be maintained wherever possible. That's what I believe these windows here to be. They may not be original to the house, but since these were the first windows that were installed here, because as the porch was enclosed and because it was done during the period of significance, they're believed to be the most original windows in this opening at the very least, and that they're true divided light windows. So given that review process, it appears that there were no errors that were identified in the administrative approval, so staff recommends denial of the appeal. Thank you for your time today, and I cede the rest of mine to the commission.
Thank you, Michaela. Are there any questions?
I just have to disclose that I was contacted by the city of Boise to look at if those windows were within the period of significance or not. So
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Commissioner Koski.
I have a question for Michaela. You mentioned that the certificate of appropriateness that you approved of on the administrative side said, oh, I gotta find it now. That under the condition that the windows be replaced with the same style of window as currently exists. So currently existing is a casement type window in steel. So were you asking in your conditions that it be a steel window with casements, or is it more specific to the grids?
It's specific to the grids and the divided light pattern, and that's what I call out specifically. I know some of the public comments said, putting a steel window in wouldn't be appropriate. I agree with that. The material is allowed to change, and the style of opening is also allowed to change. It was more just that the style would be significantly altered. So that's more the size and the style. That's what I was referring to in the condition.
Okay, because remember going from a casement window to a hung window in the grid. So thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions for Michaela? Okay, thank you. Is the appellant present? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 20 minutes.
Jim Colley with Amazing Exteriors on behalf of the owner, Mrs. Wagner.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, I guess let me introduce Ms. Wagner and her son are here. Ms. Wagner has lived at this location for 46 years. So she's seen a lot of things in the North End changing and when we approached her with a window replacement, what we looked at was the original design of the home. And so, Ted, do you have this photo? I'd sent this over to Michaela and she had indicated that it would be available for me to show. Can I just give it to you or?
Yes, or Michaela can share it on
Okay.
her screen.
I'm pulling it up right now.
And Michaela did a really good job of describing, how we've gotten to this point. But what we wanted to share was, I guess, the distinction in our mind from original construction versus an enclosure of a patio. And I realized, that steel casements were the thing, back in the 40s. But this home was built in the 1900 era. And so what we were wanting to do is match the styling of the windows on the left, which are original, as opposed to the steel casements on the right on this particular view. So we felt very strongly about that because, it seemed to us to be the intent of the preservation guidelines is, okay, we're honoring what was originally there. And so, and I understand about an enclosure of a patio back in the 40s. And as I understand it, that is important as well. So what we are here to ask for approval on is to go to the simpler version and a double hung window in this opening so that it matches on that elevation, on that left elevation of the house. And so that really is the premise that brings us here tonight. And so I will entertain any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Colley? Wonderful. Thank you so much. Is the Registered Neighborhood Association here to testify?
Looks like they are.
Wonderful.
They're just muted, it looks like right now.
Is it Kate?
It's Suzanne yelling.
Suzanne.
There we go.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Actually, we weren't intending to testify on this matter.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you, Suzanne.
Okay.
Are there any members of the public tonight wishing to testify? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You have.
My name's Carolyn Wagoner, 2001 North 19th. I'm the homeowner. And I just want to say I love my home. I've been there for a long, long time, taken good care of it, kept the integral, character of the home. I love that it's a craftsman bungalow style. And the reason I'm contesting the windows is because I want a uniform appeal from the curb. So, I'm not trying to make anything unreasonable. I think it's a reasonable appeal to make it look the same on the curb, and it's still craftsman style windows, which would be easier for me as a senior citizen too, to clean, to tell you the truth. Those little panes are a PAIN to clean. So that's, I think, all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other members of the public tonight wishing to testify? Okay. Mr. Callie, if you'd like, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, or you can yield your time. Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing, and we'll consider some discussion, a motion. Either or.
Madam Chair, I'll speak up. Jim, nice to see you again. Getting to know you a little bit. The windows are a significant architectural component of our districts and of our homes. And sometimes it can be a tough one to understand. And I'm in the window business, so I get it, but that doesn't mean everyone gets it. So I'm looking at the case that was presented in front of us, and I don't feel that staff erred at all. And it's if you look at our standards of review for appeals, I don't think that it's met. Anything in the criteria for standards of reviews that we would have to overturn this. So I can make a motion if you like, or if there's more discussion, I'm fine with that too.
Do any other commissioners have any comments? I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Koski, if you'd like.
I will move that for DRH 21-00186 for denial of the appeal based on our standards of review for appeals 11-03-03.09C, which is if no error is found, the appeal shall be denied and decision upheld.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Victoria, will you please call the roll?
Koski,
Aye.
Maroney,
Nay.
Weaver,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Pape,
Nay.
Montoto,
Nay.
Kintai.
Nay.
Motion fails, 4 opposed, 3 in favor.
Thank you. Do we need to have another motion?
I think we can continue to have discussion. I would like that.
Okay, great. Commissioner Maroney, I'm just going to pick on you since you were the first nay vote. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I walk by your house all the time. I live near you and I love your house. I think it's beautiful. And like you said, you do take very, very good care of it. And the material I see that you are replacing the windows with is high quality. Like everybody has stated, you're trying to match the historic time period of when the house was built, not when the porch was built. I know what our guidelines are. I think Michaela made a good call, but again, as a commission, we get to look at things on a case-by-case basis. And so we can say, you know, if we are going to follow guidelines or make an exception. And I feel like given what's presented in front of me today, I would like to make the exception.
Thank you. I guess I'll add my thoughts as well. Ted, can you, or Michaela, can you pull up the certificate of appropriateness with the condition? Thank you so much. So when I read condition A, it says replacement windows must match the size and style of the existing windows, including the current grid divided light patterns. And then can you go to the proposed slide? I think it's just the one before. So when I see the word windows in that condition, I am thinking that it's in reference to the other windows on the property, because there's only one window looking on the, what is that? The other side of the house, with the multiple grids. And there's no other like that on the property. So that's just my thought. And so my interpretation would be that the proposed windows are adequate. So that was why I voted the way that I did. But I would definitely love to hear more from other commissioners or entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to comment again, unless
No,
someone else
please.
has something to say. So just some education on the windows, and if we can keep looking at this slide, it's perfect. So not only does the proposal set forth show a different grid pattern, but we're completely changing the style of the windows. And we're talking about the front of the house, which is historically significant. And while it may be different than the other windows in the house, it was deemed a contributing house with this addition. And when you look at windows, you have 3 sets of windows. There's actually, I guess you could say, multiple windows in the 2 big groups, with 1 window in the small side facing the backyard. But we're going from casement windows which crank open or swing open to double hung windows or hung windows which slide up and down. And while that may match the house, I think it's a significant departure from what has been considered by the historian who did the survey to be a contributing part of the house. So we're changing style of window, and we're changing the grid pattern, and we're changing the material. So there's a significant amount of changes there that are going to change the look of the house. Now, granted, it's going to match the other parts of the house. I agree, but I think when we look at the guidelines and also the grounds for appeal, I think Michaela and staff made the right decision on the staff level, saying, hey, there's many significant changes, and she's accepting the hung windows, but wants the grid pattern to match. So she's already made some, unless I'm wrong, Michaela, she's already made a concession to change the style of the window, but also keep the grid pattern, which is probably the more significant defining part of the windows. So I don't know if that helped clarify my original motion at all, and provide the commission with some more details. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski. Do any other commissioners have anything to say?
I would like something to say.
Please.
So I agree with Commissioner Koski. I mean, we have the standards for rehabilitation. And so when the survey was done, it took into account standard 3, each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or architectural elements from other buildings, shall not be undertaken. Sorry, wrong. I meant to read the standard 4. Most properties change over time. Those changes that have acquired historical significance in their own right shall be retained and preserved. So these windows they were installed during the period of significance. They technically should be retained and preserved. Standard 6 also states that deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Personally, I don't even think we should be looking at window replacements here. We should be looking at repairing the window before we replace it with something that's not compatible with that house. And then finally, as an architectural historian, we look at a building, we read the building. And by adding these windows that were not put in when the house was built, it does create a false sense of history. So standard 3. So it's at this point, it doesn't meet 3 of the standards for rehabilitation.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Motion, additional discussion.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Koski.
if Michaela or Ted could pull up the page that shows the standards of review for appeals. It's page 32 in our packet. I think it's worth, as commissioners, for us to look at that, because that's what we're being asked to do in this case. We're asked to make a decision based on the standards review for appeals.
Ted, you might have faster access to that than I do.
I think she would have said that you might have faster access than her.
It was page 32 in our packet, Ted. I don't know if Michaela's grabbing it or not.
Now that I have her packet.
It was in our agenda packet. So
Okay.
Yeah, just go up to there, the standards. That was it right there. Thank you. So this is what we need to look at when we're looking at appeals for making a decision. So I don't know if that's helpful to everybody or not. I know it's helpful to me. But Madam Chair, that's all I had. I thought that'd be a good reference. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. With that, would anyone like to make a motion?
I could restate my motion.
Feel free, Commissioner Koski.
Okay. I will restate my motion to under the standards of review for appeals 11-03-03.09C. The fact that I do not see that an error was found, that the appeal should be denied for DRH 21-00186. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Victoria, will you please call the roll?
Koski,
Aye.
Maroney,
Nay.
Beaver,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Pape,
Nay.
Montoto,
Nay.
Kentai.
Nay.
Motion fails, 4 opposed, 3 in favor.
Thank you. Commissioner Maroney, would you like to make a motion?
I guess I have a question. So this is the appeal, right? This is how they would say, we don't like this decision. We would like somebody else to review it. I mean, I don't necessarily think that Michaela made an error, but at the same time, I feel like they, this is their avenue to come and have other eyes look at it. And we do review things on a case-by-case basis. And so Ted, do they have another avenue to have us look at it if they don't like the decision? What structurally does that look like?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Maroney, you can, this is brought before you that it is, the main finding is, was the administrative decision in error or not? The commission could certainly determine that the administrative review did err in its interpretation of the guidelines or interpretation of the code. So you could certainly, you kind of go that route with it. So otherwise, so you're just reviewing this and looking, at what they present and what our review was and what our decision was, and then making that, and as a commission determining was the staff review of this somehow not appropriate or in error. So I think you can make your decision within that box, I guess.
Great, thank you,
I
Ted.
don't think you're confined to just finding a technical error or anything like that, but as a commission determining that staff, maybe erred in its interpretation or application of the guidelines.
Great, thank you, Ted. That's helpful.
I would think that perhaps that falls under 11-3 or 03-03.09C2A5.
Okay, so you're getting at the two opinions.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. If you'd like to take a whack at it.
So I would like to move to approve the appeal of DRH 21186 on the basis of 1103.03.09C2A5, as I see that there are differing opinions between the commission in terms of what they deem as appropriate for windows at this time and what Michaela staff thought.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Victoria, will you please call the roll?
Husky,
Nay.
Maroney,
Aye.
Weaver,
Nay.
Brown,
Nay.
Ape,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Kintai.
Aye.
Motion carries 4 in favor, 3 opposed.
Thank you. Your appeal is approved. Next, we're going to move on to our final item on the agenda this evening. Item number 2, DRH 21-00190, Ben Semple at 2211 North 17th Street. Ted, can we please have the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. This is a certificate of appropriateness request, to construct to add on to the existing garage and to construct a second story ADU. Property is in the expanded North End Historic District and considered non-contributing. This highlighted is an aerial of the property with the existing garage structure. As you'll note, it's running just south, or it lies just south of Hill Road, which runs to the north. Office building to the north as well, an office building across the street with a residence to the south. This is a photo of the house and existing garage. So it's a non-contributing mid-century structure and quite limited vertically. And this is the plan showing the orientation of the existing garage and the new structure being built around it. And these are the elevations. So actually the style generally matches the single family structure on the property. It's just about 4 feet taller. And the applicant can maybe explain this a little bit further. The grade of the garage also sits lower than the grade of the house by a few feet, which mitigates some of the height. These are west and south elevation. So the guideline concerns with this is that the garage ADU will be a little bit over 20 feet to peak. And then the 1-story house is 14 feet to peak. However, the garage is secondary, located toward the rear of the property. And in this case, with this very limited house, as far as height goes, it would be pretty much impossible to have a 2nd-story ADU or a 2-story garage or any kind of structure more than 1 story on the property without exceeding the height of the house. As I previously mentioned, the grading in the area where the garage is about 3 feet lower than the house, which will help mitigate some of that height. And I mentioned in the work session that it is a very strong city goal to encourage ADUs to help with housing availability, even in the historic districts. So we're, as far as it's still a case-by-case basis with these situations, what is the style and height of the house and what are they actually doing with the garage and how massive is the garage compared to the house. But it is encouraged by city leadership that we take a look at these more closely and promote, these ADUs on these type of properties. And with that, we do recommend approval of DRH 21-190.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ted? Okay, great. Is the applicant present?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Ben Semple, 1450 West Bannock Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. I'm the applicant standing in for the homeowner regarding this ADU application here, or the certificate of appropriateness for the ADU. I want to thank Ted for his presentation. He did a good job encapsulating really what the application entails. It is for a very minor expansion of the lower level of the garage to provide some additional storage space in there. It's a single car garage currently, and it's oriented on the site where it has the required backup space into the alley. And then the other parking for the home is up off of 17th Street with the existing driveway that was shown in that aerial photo. I do want to say that we are in agreement with the staff report and all conditions of approval, and the builder and owner intend to comply with all of those. But yeah, it's really the height that Ted was discussing. The way that the home was built, it's a walk up from the street level, about 2 to 3 or 3 or 4 steps up from the street level to the front door, and then that drops out that same amount into the backyard, which then you can see on this. There's also about a 1.5 to 2 foot high wall. You can see the block there next to the wall of the garage against those pavers. So that garage sits about 3 to 4 feet below the finished floor, below the existing home elevation. And with the very low pitch on that roof, it actually does have a little bit of a pitch on the home roof. It's not truly flat. And then there is a chimney stack on there that probably projects about 4 feet above the roof of the existing home. So we feel like even though this ADU addition is slightly above, it's about 3 feet above when you take into consideration that grade change, that being well behind this home, there has been an addition onto this in the past, and with this being located where it is, it's really not very visible from the street. What these pictures don't show is that tree that's just over the left side of the home, the picture of the home here. That's probably about I'm going to say 50 to 60 foot tall oak that currently shades the entire backyard. There's also a spruce in the back that is fairly close to the garage itself. So really the view into the yard is obscured from the street. And then the neighbors to the west have some fairly large evergreens in their backyard. I just don't see a whole lot of impact visually from this. And it does allow for this owner to construct a studio space above the garage for use as another bedroom and office space for themselves. The home is a 3-bedroom. It's only about 1,600 square feet, single level, and as stated in the staff report, there is the potential that this home could in the future be renovated or replaced on the site. But I do know that the owners of this house intend to live there. They have a young family and they're planning to live there for the foreseeable future. And so they're just trying to gain a little bit more space, usable space on their lot without doing an entire renovation of the home itself. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of what we're proposing, and I would love to stand for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Semple. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you so much. Is the Registered Neighborhood Association here to testify?
I think you're going to call on me again. So this is Suzanne Yaley. I'm a co-chair with Kate Henwood. She's usually our spokesperson, and I just signed up incorrectly. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem, Suzanne.
To testify. So, thank you. And
thank you. Okay, are there any members of the public tonight wishing to testify? Doesn't appear so. So, Mr. Semple, if you'd like, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, or you can yield your time.
I'll yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any final questions for Ted or the applicant? Okay, great. With that, I'll go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing. And before I entertain a motion, based on staff's recommendations for approval, I have absolutely no problem with this project, and I will be voting in favor. Does anyone have any comments or a motion?
– Madam Chair, I've got a
Commissioner
comment
Kosky.
or maybe a question for the commission. We talk a lot about the city encouraging ADU usage, and we talk, it's mentioned in the report even that this house is a non-contributing house, that in the future it could be made taller. But until those things actually happen, I believe we are to uphold the guidelines. So I struggle with that because, I live in the city. I live in an historic district, and if changes are coming, then that's fine. But until those changes come, it's my opinion, we still have to uphold the guidelines, which we've been asked to uphold. And in the case of this, there's 3 significant conditions in the guidelines that they go beyond. I'm gonna read them since I have them out. So in 6.1.2 in our guidelines, it says to maintain a proportional mass, size, and height to ensure that the accessory building is not taller, or dwelling unit is not taller than the primary building on the lot. Well, it most definitely is taller. So, it's not a couple inches, it's feet taller. And then 6.1.10, it said it's not appropriate to design the accessory dwelling unit or garage to visually compete with overpower the primary building on the lot. This home has a very low roof. So I understand the design restraints that creates, but this will be able to be seen from the front of the house, over the top of the house. And, I deem that my opinion is that's overpowering. And then lastly, 6.1.11 is it's not appropriate to add an accessory dwelling unit to a site which does not maintain or blend with the heights of buildings on the adjacent sites. This whole block is single-story houses and single-story garages and very low roofs. So until I'm told to go with this different set of guidelines, I kind of got to go with the guidelines. Those are pretty significant points that we're going over. So if we're changing them, if we're going to have a rewrite, then fine, maybe they can come back and rewrite it. But until then, I struggle with this one. I can't approve it based on those. Those are my comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Kosky. Are there any other comments or potential motions?
I have a comment. So I agree with Commissioner Kosky and all the points he made out. Our guidelines are based on the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. Even if we change our guidelines, I will always be following the professional standards of my field. So for this project, it goes against those standards, goes against our current written standards. And like Commissioner Weaver said last time, we have no idea what they're going to do with this accessory dwelling unit. We don't know if they're going to provide extra housing until that's written into our guidelines somehow, the use of the ADU. I'm following our guidelines. So I'm with Commissioner Kosky.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or motions?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Maroney.
I feel like our job as a commission is to know the guidelines and understand them, but also know when it's appropriate to make exceptions. Otherwise, a computer could do our job, right? It would just go down and check like, yes, it did, or no, it didn't meet these guidelines. With regards to 6.1.10, I don't think that it will be visible from the street because the street is lower than the house. Like you have to walk up to the house and then it drops off again. And so, yes, it will be taller than the house, but given like where a person is standing looking up at the house, I don't think that they'll be able to see it. Also, given the nature of the lot and what it's surrounded with, yes, it does abut residential, but it also abuts commercial. And so I think understanding the character of the neighborhood, I don't feel like this is going to negatively impact the lot or the feel of the area. So I will be voting in favor of it as staff recommends after they review the project.
Thank you, Commissioner Maroney. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Maroney?
I move to approve DRH 21-00190, as long as they agree with all of the requirements of the staff laid out.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Victoria, will you please call the roll?
Husky,
Nay.
Maroney,
Aye.
Weaver,
Aye.
Brown,
Nay.
Pape,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Kintai.
Aye.
Motion carries 5 in favor, 2 opposed.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our hearing for this evening. We will see you all next month.
Thank you.